Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to to community meeting for December. Yes, and in this community meeting, we'll be discussing. Yes, I don't have my list ready, of course. We're going to be discussing the introduction. We're going to have some introductions. The update to the certificate programs, some course development classes for the faculty, some course building features that we have. A degree granting and authority application. Degree granting authority application? Yeah, sorry, can't read that. Too small. Some technical and feature updates, and of course we'll have questions from the faculty and the community. You're welcome to pose your questions if you're watching on Crowdcast. You're welcome to pose your questions on this side. I'm not sure. On this side, I think it is. In the chat, I see that everybody says hello. Hey guys, thank you. And of course you're welcome to ask questions. Down below there's a questions tab which you can ask your questions. People can vote on your questions. We'll be asking you polls. We're giving you some polls that you might want to answer. There's one up there now which asks you what your affiliation is to Oplerno. For the rest you know all the places that you can ask your questions otherwise. If you're watching on YouTube, please ask your questions in the comments. We're following everything there. So let's get over to introductions. I'm Daniel. You all know me. The next guy is Robert Skiff.
I'm Rob Skiff. I'm the CEO and co-founder. Daniel is also one of the co-founders, and we're really excited to have you here at Festivus and to go through and enjoy a fun meeting and introduce some new people to you. Now I'll introduce Dan Kirk. Dan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Howdy, everyone. Dan Kirk here, Director of Operations and Faculty Support. Excited for give you all a wrap up on how our operations have been going, faculty updates, and some support chatter about what we have coming up in 2015.
And without further ado, I want to introduce one of the newest members of the team, Michael Lee. And why don't you introduce yourself, and Michael's taking the role of Director of Finance. As we're growing and expanding our operations, Michael's going to be involved in both he's going to be involved in basically helping us to create the financial infrastructure involved in Oplerno as we scale up. But he's also going to be doing some recruitment in terms of students and businesses and the corporate piece, and I'll let him explain that. So without further ado, Michael Lee.
Yes, hello. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rob. And thank you for joining us on this Festivus, and I'm excited to be a part of it as well. Recently joined the team, Oplerno, Rob and Daniel and Dan, to help build something really unique. And I learned about Oplerno less than a year ago and met Rob here in Burlington, Vermont, and we interacted over what Rob's vision and his team's vision was for Oplerno, and excited to see what the future holds for this platform and for what everyone in the community contributes to it. So as Rob said, I'm coming on as the Director of Finance. I have a history as an accounting and finance professional helping companies build financial infrastructure to grow, and so I'll be coming on to do that. And there'll be plans, I think we're talking about during this call, for 2015 that all require processes and financial procedures and also infrastructure to make sure it all happens smoothly. All the behind the scenes things that happen on a transaction level that need to be before it happens. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to interacting with all of you as well. Thank you.
And Michael is also has a company called Burlington CFO, where he does the CFO job for several other different companies, and also is involved in state local politics in the Vermont area, and comes to us from Arizona. He is a recent hobbit, as we call ourselves in Vermont, and we're really happy to have him, especially the contacts that he has in the business world, because one of the things we're going to be doing in terms of recruiting students is also doing outreach into companies as they do their skills development for their employees, which is another distribution channel to get students.
Yeah. And if you remember, of course, Michael was also on Woodblock as one of the speakers on the panel.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. From this that we had early in the fall, it was late in August. Yeah. Right. Okay. So let me just go to the next. Without further ado, what I want to do is update you on our certificate programs. Okay, which is Dan Kirk, Daniel, and I. The three of us, because Michael's been on board with us for a little over a week, but the three of us have been working on creating these certificate programs. And what we want to do is announce our first set of certificates that we've developed and talk a little bit about that. Let me just pull up my notes for a second. Come on. So the certificate programs are a total of 4 courses that you take, and we have you take 3 courses with Oplerno. You can take all 4 courses with Oplerno, and you then are issued a certificate. A certificate is, again, 4 courses with Oplerno, but we also will transfer in courses. So, for example, if you have a course from another college or from dealing with professional development and some such that meets the criterion, then you can transfer that course into our certificate. The initial certificates that we have to offer, and these are certificates of completed courses, and we'll be launching the website around January 1st. We have a philosophy certificate and a teaching in the digital arts, teaching in the digital age, digital course design certificate, a sustainability and science certificate, along with some business courses, a business certificate, and we should be also having our computer science certificate also up by January 1st. One of the things that it's important to remember is that Oplerno stands for Open Learning Organization. So we've also created online, and some of you have accessed it, a spreadsheet where we, Dan, Kirk, and I, and Daniel, we went through and we grouped a whole bunch of different courses together and group them in terms of the business, group them in terms of subject areas. And so in most of our certificate courses right now, your choice of what you want to take is rather limited for your classes. But for example, let's take the philosophy course, the philosophy certificate that we'll be offering. We have listed under courses that are under development, we have 9 courses that are under development in the philosophy certificate. We have 5 courses right now that a person is able to take. Again, for a certificate with Oplerno, all you need to do is take 4 courses or take 3 courses and transfer in a class. And those courses that are under development, the more courses that we have completed, those get approved, and then those go underneath that certain philosophy certificate. Computer science, same thing. We also have a political science, contemporary political systems certificate that we'll be offering once we have a couple of more courses. But there again, we have about a choice of over 10 classes that are going to be able to be that are being developed that will go under that certificate piece. The nice thing about Oplerno, though, is if you have an idea for a certificate and you have a grouping of classes, for example, we have one particular faculty member in business who has about who has 2 classes that she's developed, and she can contact someone else and add those into a specialized certificate in international business and international management. So there's all kinds of different possibilities to create these certificates, and again, we're going to use the certificates as the jumping off point as we move to the next step, which is degree granting authority. Now, let me just check to make sure I don't have any messages coming in. Right now, one of the things that's really important to remember with the certificates is, of course, transferability. Now, Dan Kirk and I have designed a series of courses. A series of policies relating to transfer credits, and of course, and we're posting them again January 1st. Although I think some of you have seen it in terms of in conversation. One of the things that we will, of course, accept courses for credit from any state or national or regionally accredited institution in the United States. As for overseas, if it is an institution that's accredited by a national body, the national institution, then we will accept that as a course for credit with our certificates and also our degree programs when we have them. And then the other really interesting piece is if you've taken a if you've taken a course with Coursera or edX, and you've taken an exam where your identity has been verified, we will also take those courses for credit in terms of our use in the in our certificate program. Now, transfer courses won't be able to use our portfolio system, but they will go on a transfer. They will go on your transcript as a transfer credit. So again, just like we have all these really interesting courses that have been developed because we're open source, not open source, but we're an open learning organization. Right now, we're looking and creating certificates in that same way. People coming up with interesting certificate titles, submitting those certificates along with a list of classes to us for approval, and then when they get approved, we will list them with our January 1st. We will list them with our in a special part of the website that we have in terms of enrollment of certificates. That's a pretty exciting piece, and we're really happy to have it. There's a couple of different things that we're going to be that Daniel's going to talk about when we talk about the text features and the updates, but the certificate pieces are really important to us. Number one, it's a way for us to market to students, both traditional and non-traditional students in higher ed, but also as a way to market to businesses who are looking for individuals with specific backgrounds, and we can say, hey, this certificate we have in accounting, bookkeeping, business, finance, science, whatever, we can create certificates that meet the needs of those businesses and also meet the needs of those students. One last piece to remember is John Bolton, who's a faculty member in philosophy, really wants us to work hard on developing what's called the bespoke degree, and that's a degree that students can create and manage that meets their needs for what they want to do professionally or personally in life. And the way in which we've created the certificates here is another way in which to do that. And so thanks to John Bolton for sort of pushing us to to be open and keeping things as simple and high quality as possible. Okay, I'm just going to switch to the community meeting for a second because I want to make sure if you've got any questions. I haven't heard any more about when the humanities certificate may be targeted for. So the humanities certificate that we're also launching, that's part of the group that's going to get launched. Who's that? Who are we going to be marketing that for? Marketing is a really tricky piece. We're really working hard to find that that the best mix of doing the marketing. As you know, we've had a couple of hiccups in terms of people who are joining us and who've not been able to stay in that position. But there's all kinds of different groups that we're reaching out to who may be able to help us get the word out about humanities certificates, writing certificates, or any certificate that we're operating with in Oplerno. Okay. And if you've got a more specific question about that, shoot us a line, okay? All right. Now let's go to the next part of the agenda, which is Dan Kirk is going to review sort of our course information and some faculty statistics. Okay.
So we had a solid year of, I would call it consistent growth in the faculty and course departments. We've grown to 174 faculty members who have signed the contract, given us their information, and have an account on email, Oplerno email, as well as Canvas. We have 176 total courses, which, as you can see, is more courses than faculty. And of course, just like any, free, I guess, user account-based program, not all of our faculty are active, and we completely understand that. Most folks have multiple teaching gigs, family, free time, and maybe some hobbies in there. And something like Oplerno is, in a way, an act of goodwill and faith in something, in building this movement and this sort of system. But you'll still see that we do have even more than one course per faculty member average. Some folks have 10 courses, some folks have 1, some folks have none. And actually, just a side note on that, we are going to be doing some more sort of auditing. Audit is a scary word, but just going through our systems and seeing, what kind of activity levels our users are engaging, and maybe clean out and ask some of the folks to either go remain active or to relinquish their space. All that does for Oplerno is save us money and allows us to operate on a really thin budget, which works for you guys, works for us, works for students. Everyone wins. So that's something that might be coming down the pike, depending on what kind of systems we can arrange in the new year. So of those 176 total courses, 26 are completed, approved, and listed on the marketplace, which is enroll.oplerno.com. And we've had some students sign up. I know Dr. Sadler's course on existentialism has gotten a lot of good feedback via his Facebook postings. He's been a really great champion of sort of understanding the entrepreneurial needs that Oplerno has, and I wouldn't call them demands, but at this stage, those who are acting more in the entrepreneurial spirit will likely find that their outreach is more successful, and they will perhaps gain more students in their course, and as an income as a result of that. So that's just something I wanted to mention as far as recruitment. And then we're now giving, I know we mentioned this a few times, but not to a whole group like this. I've switched from giving feedback to faculty as in a text-based manner, which takes me a lot longer. It's harder for me to explain what's in my mind and what I'm looking at on the screen, and it's probably then harder, it doesn't necessarily translate to the reader. So we've signed up for a program where I can look at your course on my screen, click through, show you my feedback, give you thoughts, sort of open it up as a discussion rather than a checklist. And that seems to have been effective. I send those responses via Canvas, so we're not clogging up anybody's inbox. And so that would come through your Canvas messaging system, which you can view in the top right of your Canvas account under Inbox. And we had some questions, and I've had some questions over the year and basically all the time about faculty members asking about features within Canvas. So I know Canvas well. I'd say I have a strong sense of it, but I don't work or develop for Canvas, and none of us do. Canvas is a product that Oplerno uses. We think it's the best learning management system out there. It's intuitive, it's dynamic, it's got an open API. Their support is out of this world as far as, especially in higher ed, they take very little time to get back to you, which isn't common in this field. And so when I get questions, my first response in my head is, okay, did you check the Canvas help feature, which is essentially what I do most of the time if someone asks me a question that I don't know. And that can just be viewed in the top right of your Canvas screen under help. It's also guides.instructure.com. Unbelievably helpful. There's a community-based feature where you can have discussions with other members as well as the developers and the support team. There's a complete guide the search is really responsive and usually hits what you're looking for. There's also a way for you to request features as an instructor and user and community member, things you might see lacking, things that you might want tightened up. I know for me, there's a group feature that I can't just go through our users and drag and drop into groups, so I'm going to go in there, request that feature. They respond and say, thanks for doing it, and people can upvote your requests, and ultimately the ones that rise to the top are the ones that get the attention from the developers at Canvas. That being said, we are available to help. Canvas is always adding new features. I know Daniel and I get emails probably more than once a week of what kind of updates they've done, what kind of features have been added, what kind of third-party apps that are available to users. And yeah, so it's hard for us to keep up with that and do our jobs here at Oplerno. So I just urge you, again, in that entrepreneurial spirit and sort of self-driven nature of Oplerno, ownership of what you do and what you create and it being yours, is to Google it, jump into the help community, jump into the sort of message board based assistance system that they have, and start those conversations. They'll probably end up being faster than what I can reply to you, and probably more direct. So that's just a sort of, I don't know, urging that I think would be most effective for our faculty members in getting a response they need with the right information, with a step-by-step plan on, say, using conferences, or how to add a link to a module, or how to use Google Docs in collaboration with Canvas in your course. So that is my support and faculty update for the year. I don't know if I haven't been checking out the questions, seeing if anything's come in, but if anyone would let me know about that, I think we're good. Oh, Rob, your microphone's off, buddy.
Got it. We can also deal with the questions at the end of the meeting. Okay. So let's now talk a little bit about degree granting authority in the application. I also want to talk about licensing and how we're building this. Degree granting authority application. So as you all know, or most of you know, in last year we applied for approval with the state of Vermont, and now the next step for us, and approval is kind of the lowest level of accreditation. Okay. The next step is for us to apply to become a degree granting institution, and basically all of our paperwork, okay, to become a degree granting institution is all our paperwork is completed. What we don't have, though, is content, is enough content, and we really need faculty and other networks to be creating content that we can place as we link and list different degrees that we're going to be offering. And so once we have that, a few degree programs that we can share, and once we've run just a couple of classes, what we're going to be doing is we're going to set the meeting and the appointment with both the agency, the Vermont Agency of Education, and also the Vermont State Board of Education, and then go for that degree granting authority. There's also a filing fee of about $4,000, and et cetera, which we'll pay, and we'll start that process. That process can run rather quickly for us. It will involve, interestingly enough, we're going to be one of, again, like we were the first purely online educational institution to receive approval. We're going to be probably one of the first to receive, well, to apply a fully online educational institution to apply for degree granting authority. So there are some questions in there that just flat out aren't relevant to us, like come and visit the campus. What is the physical infrastructure? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sharing with them Canvas, the marketplace, different policies that we have, the resumes of all the faculty, and so there's a ton of transparency involved in that we're going to be that we're going to be dealing with, and that is going to how quickly will that happen? The degree granting authority. They're sending me a very funny message, which is, Rob, don't share your screen. No, I'm not going to share my screen. That's verboten. What we're going to be doing is that once we submit our application for degree granting authority to the state of Vermont, then we'll sometime 90 days afterwards we'll have we'll have kind of our answer about whether or not we would receive it or not. But before we do that, I'd like to have that completed sometime in February or March, the first quarter of this year. We do have to have some more content, and we're going to work on that. So we're building the certificates as stepping stones to create the degree programs. Okay, so the more content we have and the more certificates we have, then we can identify which degree programs we're going to create. And we have to go through the state of Vermont first, because you have to have state approval before you can get national approval. And once we have that, then we'll start working with national accrediting agencies, and also with a few more international groups and countries to push our accreditation forward. Oplerno believes in accreditation. We're going to follow the rules with accreditation. That does make it a little bit tougher for us to grow quickly because we're following the rules. We're not a fly-by-night operation. We're not trying to be, we're not doing the Udemy or Coursera or edX piece. We're following the procedures and what needs to happen in terms of accreditation and state agencies, etc. It slows us down a little bit, but that's okay. In the end, we're going to be much better off for it. I want to talk a little bit about licensing. I think a lot of you guys talked about, not a lot of you guys, several people have requested, can we license our can we license our course materials to other people to teach our classes if we develop them? And the answer to that is yes. And the second answer to that is we'll have the licensing contract completed around January 1st. I've talked with the lawyers, and we're just trying to make sure that everything's set in terms of the ownership. Again, faculty own all of the content on Oplerno, and that's outlined in your contract. So the licensing piece is going to involve you deciding what you want to charge to allow someone to use your class as a shell. Okay, and like, for example, my course on using technology in the classroom, I'm going to license that, and I'm going to charge probably $100 for someone to use that material in their class. And when that happens, I would enter Oplerno. We're going to do the contract in exactly the same way that we do it in terms of faculty, is that in this case with licensing, it's going to be 90% goes to the faculty member, 10% goes to Oplerno. Because we want to, again, develop more and more people using the material and infrastructure, but also make sure that the people who actually produce get the benefits of their production. I can, of course, as a faculty member, I might think that my stuff is absolutely amazing and I'm doing a lot of help and actually maybe training people. in how to use my material. So maybe I would want to, instead of charge $100, maybe I'd want to charge $200. Again, a
Is Rob frozen for you guys?
Yep, rubbish frozen for me. Yeah.
That's okay.
I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. I think with Rob's line. He's at his brother's house. So
All right, I can sort of chat about licensing a bit, or we can move on to the tech stuff, and when Rob comes back, you can finish it up. I know there's only a handful of folks who are thinking of licensing. We are definitely completely open to it. It is a little more complicated on a few levels. Quality of delivery, if someone changes your content within their own offering, how that affects everything, what you've licensed them for, and what their responsibility and agreement is, and how to monitor things like that. So it's a bit more complicated than one faculty member teaching their own course, but we are looking into it. There will obviously be some legal semantics to it, and us figuring those out with our legal team and lawyers. But it's part of, like I mentioned in the chat on Crowdcast. We do have a lot of projects sort of simultaneously floating, and we do rotate sort of between them. So they may seem to take a little longer, but they're all active, and that's definitely one of them, along with the degree granting application, building a course that'll help faculty build their courses, and building the certificate program, both in our software and the marketplace, as well as in the academic pedagogical sense. So I guess, Daniel, why don't you cool to go into your
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I saw Rob joined again, but he lost us, so he must be having some technical difficulty. So we hope to get him back as soon as possible there. For the technical feature updates, I think Rob already said in the second piece this evening, this morning, we're introducing the certificate programs. So there's been lots of technical things which we've been adding for the certificate programs to make them better accessible on the marketplace, and also makes them available in different places. We've been integrating far more of our CRM and our Canvas and the marketplace, so that it's easier for people to register for a course or sign up for a course, and then to get into access to the course material. We've been after a request from one of our faculty members, we've been doing a lot of work on mobile, and we finished that I think 2 weeks ago. We announced that in our team meeting, and we've been doing a lot of security features and updates. There've been I don't know if you've probably not even noticed it, but there's been some security scares or some internet things, some security things that have been going on, and we make sure that we're on the ball and up to date on that. And we still have a AAA rating on our single A rating on our course on our site, and on the security that we have on the site for the SSL. And we've made sure that we have more code coverage. Our software is all tested. We've done a lot of open source contributions. We've moved for Podio, which we work on, for Canvas. We've done some things, and for a lot of things. And of course, we've done a ton of bug fixes. We've done a ton of bug fixes. I mean, there's massive. Every time somebody tells us that there's something, we try and fix it as soon as possible. So we really focused on making the experience for our faculty members and our students just the most excellent that we can. It looks like we're having Michael dropped and Rob dropped. So the wonderful world of Google Hangouts, of course. for the technical side, that's pretty much it. It's something but of course we've been, as we always say, we really like your feedback. So if there's anything such as with the mobile experience that you have, that one of our faculty members has, we really want to know what's happening. We've recently had some people who, for them, buttons didn't work. So it's really, really important for you to tell us this. If you see anything, if you're tracking anything, if we've made a mistake somewhere, whether it's on the technical side or on the non-technical side, that you tell us what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong there. So, I think. Okay. Dan, would you mind dialing in Robert?
Sure. If I don't have an ad, I can give him the link.
Oh yeah, no, but I think you have to. Okay.
Sorry, folks. This is. Oh. I don't have an ad button, Daniel. I have only the.
Let's see. I think I have
I'll give you his phone number in the chat.
I have. Oh yeah, I think you wanted so.
I wish we had some music we could play everybody right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, but of course, any music that we would like to play would be all copyrighted, so we could absolutely not do that. So otherwise, we get ourselves banned from Facebook, of course. Well, while we're waiting, what we can do is, of course, open the session for questions from the audience. So if you have any questions for us, you could. Sorry?
I got one here from Professor Crowley. And looks like Scott, one of our other faculty members, answered. But will courses be offered whenever an instructor wishes, or will there be target semester dates to try and coordinate courses and times? Oh, that was a question. Sorry. Either way, I can answer both. It's up to you. I mean, ideally, in the future there will be people all over the world whose schedules and cultural schedules are all different and may not coincide with the North American semester or trimester or quarter or whatever system we use. And in fact, we may not have a majority of traditional students. We may have folks from all different walks of life and different levels of career and ages and all that kind of stuff. Rob's calling me. I don't know what to do. Rob, we're live, dude. Rob. Okay. Okay, we'll see you soon. He's logging back on. All right, so yeah, so it depends on what the instructor may experience in terms of enrollment. It may change. Yeah, you might coincide with a semester. You might not. It's totally up to you. Some folks have asked. Some folks have asked if say we have a like over a holiday in the States, if we can do a break, and we've decided not to do that. So you may want to schedule sort of before or after any sort of vacations or holidays that you would like to take. Of course, you can do this with you can do this from anywhere. You don't need to stay in the place where you live to teach. So if you did want to travel, as long as you had internet, you could continue your course. But it is up to the instructor, and that'll be sort of one of the iterative processes. Like a lot of what we're doing is you'll sort of see when people peak and when it might dip, and but ultimately, as we grow, there could be thousands of classes going all simultaneously. There could even be a few calculus classes running at the same time, just like at a regular institute or a traditional institution of higher learning, and we don't, anticipate that being an issue. But ultimately, there will be probably a class at all hours of the day, all days of the year. We had a question about how are inquiries from students going. What about partnering with other institutions? Student inquiries are growing. They're still a small amount of the communication we receive. Most of our correspondence is with faculty and interested folks who would be teaching. We think, as we've said in the past, this is sort of a multi-legged stool that each time we make a little bit of progress, all pieces have to catch up together. We can't sort of get a breakthrough and all of a sudden we'll have students. We need content, we need tech, we need outreach, we need marketing, we need operations, we need our finances to be sound. So as faculty build courses and increase the depth and breadth of what we can teach, that I think will attract students. I know once students start having success transferring credits, and we need early adopters, that will increase both the credibility of the courses we teach, it'll increase our efficiency at transferring credits, and it'll increase the exposure and word of mouth. One student says, hey, I just took an intro philosophy course for $500 and my credits transferred to my institution. So, hey, why don't you check out this great deal at Oplerno? That'll help too. And I'll let Rob talk about partnering, and because that's sort of his bag.
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about the. Sorry for the breakup there. I don't know why the internet went down where I was. Just a question to go back to that. How far were we through? Did people hear about the content creators get 90%? Oplerno gets 10% of the licensing fee, and they can decide what they want. Did people hear that?
Licensing?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can reiterate it, I guess.
Okay. Well, when we're designing the licensing, and somebody on the community meeting chat, please tell me if I've already gone over this. We're creating a system where you decide how much you want to charge to license your course to someone else to teach, in terms of your content. We are also doing the classic 90% goes to the person who's created the content, 10% goes to Oplerno in terms of the specific fee, and all the legal paperwork should be done and finished in the first 2 weeks. Now let's get back to the partnering with institutions. Partnering is a really tough piece. It's a little bit tougher than I have anticipated. The problem with the transfer credits hasn't been that big a deal in terms of, people say, okay, we can evaluate the we're approved by Vermont, what kind of documentation. You can take a look at the documentation based on the syllabus. We can even, of course, download relevant interactions that the student has done online. So there's a lot of documentation to show if a course meets a particular institution's standard. And in a lot of ways, it's a lot better than the current system, which might rely just on classroom data. What I'm finding is that people are, in terms of cross-listing classes or partnering in this particular way, the issue is generally one of, believe it or not, faculty remuneration. One institution that we talked to, Box, I always get sort of why are you paying the faculty so much? Okay, why are you giving them basically 90% of the tuition revenue that they're generating? And so what we're seeing is that they're hesitant to get involved in the cross-listing of courses because we're going to be paying the faculty that work through Oplerno at a much, much higher rate than their other adjunct faculty are getting paid. Okay, so if at one institution you're getting paid $3,000 to $4,000 for a section, but because of the way we've been talking with the in let's say a course with 20 people, the big issue is you're talking potentially $8,000 in revenue for a particular class. And many of these institutions do not want to open the gate for adjunct faculty to be getting paid that much per course. The other thing that's slightly scary to them is this has happened with one individual who will go nameless, who's actually in a really great class. The person is extremely well qualified. The fact that that person was going to set the tuition level and it wasn't going to be a direct institution to institution negotiation on a price per class didn't thrill them either. So we're approaching institutions with a very different model, one that puts faculty again at the center and gives adjunct faculty or any faculty a lot of control. And the institutions kind of a little bit balk at that. We're working on we're working on a few things to potentially do a little bit of an end run around that. But it's going to be a little bit tricky to pull off, and I can't really talk about it quite yet. Guys, we're very much aware of the issues around partnership and how that can get us to that, get us to scale in that 1,000 student level. I think we are going to have a hard time, to be perfectly blunt, partnering with traditional institutions of higher education, especially in an era where they are rapidly trying to cut costs and to keep control over what they have, what they've got. And I would say that's more along the line of the U.S. issue. I'm not quite so sure about the outside the U.S. piece. But that's where we're at. We're probably going to be partnering. That's another reason why we brought Michael on board, is because businesses are looking for better education for the people that work for them, their employees, better professional development, and partnering directly with businesses might be actually the way to go, and offering them certificates and degrees in that way. So, hopefully there are some institutions or some people who are active at higher educational institutions who might be interested in partnering with us, who are listening to this community meeting, and they'll say, oh, okay, I get it, and we'll work with them. But I think it's going to be very, very difficult to get partnerships with large traditional institutions of higher education. So I want to be totally clear and transparent about that. Dan, Kirk, did you talk about whether admissions was rolling? You answered that? You're not on the mic, bud.
The question was about offering a course whenever instructor wishes. We said yes, it will be up to the instructor. So there aren't any target semester dates.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. And we have the question about textbook publishers' materials, and we had some context about what folks are getting paid at other institutions for 3-credit courses. So I can take the textbook stuff, and I think, Rob, you can probably give complimentary info to my reply. We haven't had great success, and I don't know what the deal is with at least the one publisher. I made a connection with one of their reps and have followed up over the course of a lot of months, and who knows what if they're afraid of us, or don't understand the model, or are skeptical, or so that hasn't been greatly successful. It will be, again, this is a different model. You are not, each faculty member is their own entity and their own sort of structured, I don't want to say business, but you are your own agent. So it might be a little bit more difficult for us to get those arrangements, maybe especially before we are a .edu accredited institution. just because these sort of systems. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I would, textbook publishers, the textbook publishing field is a really interesting racket. And I call it a racket because the the price that they charge for these introductory textbooks versus what they deliver, they're very, very expensive. And so what you can do is, and this isn't a course that Dan Kirk and I are offering, and there are a ton of very, very good free services, free materials, what are called open source materials, that are great textbook publishing, that are just as good as a regular textbook that you can cut and paste and use and create the perfect textbook tailored to the needs of your course. And that's cnx.org. You can also check out an interesting website called 20 Million Minds Foundation. These are all groups that are dedicated to increasing higher ed access and lowering the cost to students with textbook publishing. What some really interesting work that 20 Million Minds has done is showed how the cost of textbooks actually leads to higher dropout rates amongst people seeking a degree in higher education. And so what they've done is they've developed materials and textbooks and are working with OpenStax and a bunch of other groups to push the idea of open source textbook publishing materials, textbook published materials. And so we really like to encourage our faculty to lower the cost of their classes by using this open access stuff if it's appropriate. So go to the CNX, because let's be honest here. If you charge $500 for a class, okay, and the textbook publishing company charges $150 or $200 for their materials, for their textbook, okay, that's not a really great deal for you, okay. You've increased your price point to $750 potentially or more, okay, depending upon the textbook you're using. And you're making it harder for students to access that. This is especially the case if a student is coming from outside the United States in a developing country. They're not going to be able to get that textbook from, Amazon, well, depending on where they are in the world, and they're going to be paying, $200 or $300 to do that. And you just don't want to put a person in a situation where they have to take on even more debt to take their class. So we're really trying to encourage people to use OpenStax, cnx.org, check out 20 Million Minds, and there's a few others who I'm forgetting, but they're listed in this course development class that Dan Kirk and I are going to be teaching, shameless plug, for $100. A seat, 6 weeks. If you have an idea for a class, we'll march you through a way to, think about teaching the pedagogy, producing the class online, and then it will get approved and listed on the marketplace. And that will be available the second week or so in January. Textbook publishers, use the free stuff. It's much better for people.
Right. Paul mentioned on the Crowdcast chat, one of his courses elsewhere pays $1,850, one $2,200, and one $3,200 for 3 credit courses. Depending on the math, your price, how many students enroll, ours would be competitive to that, if not more lucrative. And you own it. You own your content. You own everything you do. You create your own schedule, and you're offering it directly to students, and you don't have anybody looking over your shoulder or top down, requiring you to do anything you don't want to within the bounds of ethical teaching. So
and even getting back to that point about what you're being paid, okay, so a course for $500, okay, that you teach to 20 people, okay, will yield you at that $500 rate $8,000 for a section, and that's way more than people are getting paid in the Shire, in the land of the Hobbitses in Vermont, for a particular section. Now, in other places, it's slightly different, okay? But we know that we're paying people a whole lot more, and what's really important is that a $500 course is affordable for students without student loan debt. We have to get that story out, and we're working hard on that. But if we can get that story out, if we can say, hey, faculty are getting paid more, students are paying less, and there's better outcomes, man, that's magic, and that's all that Oplerno is about. So it's going to take a little time to get that story out there, and faculty, you guys are a big part of getting that story out. We want to make it so that you guys earn a very good living, and we also want to make it so that students do not get into a ginormous amount of debt. Michael said, in my courses I'm asking potential students to use a certain text. Often the books are available used or for rent at very good rates. I have developed my own materials and I don't think I need a publisher support. Am I missing something? You are not missing anything, Michael. Exactly the point. Good.
Great stuff. Fantastic, and I think we've mentioned on Facebook and then also in the community, on Canvas a lot of times about all the sources of free text that you can get, and we've even had integrations on Canvas. If you need other integrations with text suppliers, that you don't have to put in all the links and put everything in there. Then of course we'd be glad to put them in the text on Canvas, so it's slightly easier for you to be able to access and look for texts, so you don't have to leave Canvas to go search all over the internet. So if you have any pieces on that, or any questions on that, or features that you need us to enable in Canvas, tell us and we can do that.
Steve had a great comment. I want to read it. It's on the community meeting discussion. He said, when talking about partnerships with existing institutions, offering complementary courses to help students graduate on time would be attractive. Oplerno has lots of flexibility. You might try to find a way to make its courses a solution to the industry. By the way, the adjunct pay in our area is more like what Paul mentioned above. Steve, I totally agree with you with that insight. Here is the problem. I think Oplerno is, because it is so focused on empowering faculty, okay, to own the materials for better pay. That's one of our main pieces. Lower the student debt. I think a lot of institutions are going to find that pretty intimidating, especially when they look at their own workers and their own faculty and their own students. That's why we want to really push for that degree granting authority, and also why Dan Kirk and I have developed the transfer credit policy that we have. We're going to be really open to transferring credits from other institutions and for people to be earning a degree with Oplerno, and that degree completion piece that we can document, and a whole lot more information. I think we do have a solution for the industry. The problem is right now, I think the solution is not something the industry actually, I hate to say it, wants, and here's one reason. Institutions of higher education make their money, okay, off of students generally in the first 2 years that they teach. Okay, this is when they're in large introductory classes or larger classes of 100, sometimes down to 30 or 40 people. When they're juniors and seniors, they're actually losing money on their students, okay, because the classes are small and the instructors are generally the most well compensated. So I hate to say this, but there's actually a disincentive for many of these institutions to have the students complete the degrees before the Obama administration, in an excellent move, is now part of the ranking in the federal financial aid, U.S. financial aid piece is about degree completion. And so these institutions who basically make their money off of the first 2 years, but they don't have the students complete the degree, so there's no incentive. Now they're going to be incentivized if they want to keep their their financial aid programs intact with the federal government. They're going to have to get better at it. But there is absolutely no reason why Oplerno can't step in and be that degree completing piece, because one of the things that comes up in conversations is we are going to concentrate solely on the relationship between the teachers and the students and build everything around that. Our transfer credit policy is going to be rigorous, but we're interested in having our classes and our faculty fill classes. We're not interested in getting involved in taking students in and getting them signed up for certificates or having them repeat courses like happens when you transfer at some universities. You have to repeat the classes that you took before. And they do that because, well, that's where they make their money. And we're not interested in doing that. Our costs are low enough so that we're going to be able to service students and teachers and really create a good environment for them to learn in. Okay. So that end of rant, as they say.
No, we had a question about instructor support earlier on at the very beginning before the meeting started, and I can sort of tell you the idea and ideal situation as we scale up to, a larger number of students and faculty alike. Ultimately, there will be an entire department of support that will help folks deal with both, things like Canvas and technical issues like resetting their password or filling out their profile. There'll be folks helping out with, if a credit card, someone put a thing on a credit card and it got charged, and I got charged too many times or something. There was a bug in their system, and then there will be folks helping students, with course selection, which is obviously going to be a very interesting and tricky path to navigate as far as transfer credits and things like that go. But ideally, we'd have a system where folks could help faculty with kind of top-level, low-hanging fruit issues. If we had a bigger staff, we would also like to put on things like asynchronous and semi-synchronous, kind of like your courses orientation, much like the course that Rob and I are developing to help faculty build out their material and get their courses approved. So, again, the scale up would then include all sorts of levels where you'd be able to maybe chat in to assistance for quick issues, subscribe to a more long-term solution for course building and learning, a system that you might not be familiar with, and then, having general support for all levels of Oplerno users, from those who are interested and not yet involved in the community all the way up to, seasoned Oplerno faculty, veterans. So it's part of our scale-up plan. We've been sort of engaging in that process in I wouldn't call it forecasting, but thinking about the future and thinking about what we'll need, so that if and when that does happen, we'll be prepared and we'll have a plan that we can refer to, which of course will probably change on a daily basis. But we are thinking about it. We are here right now. We do the best we can with the resources and team size that we have. So if you have issues, I'd probably be the best person to email on the top level, and then sort of out of the gate, that is, and then you can go from there to deal with any other issues you might have, and we can help contact people at Canvas and any other products you might be interested in using.
That's a great question. The faculty support piece is huge, and it does. Right now between the four of us, we can handle our faculty size, but as we get larger, we're going to have more people on. I'm glad we don't have a, 70,000 faculty we're trying to get on board. But that would be okay. It would just take us a little while to scale up. But we have the business plan that we submitted to the state of Vermont was built around what I call a cell or a modular approach to scaling. so that for certain particular numbers of faculty or students, there's a particular number of support people, and that as you get larger, you can use those cells, use those financial figures as sort of like baseline forecasting to figure out remuneration of pay. So and as we scale, we're still profitable. We can still make sense financially, and that's important. Even at the rate of, again, $100 or 10%, whichever is greater per student. So as we get larger, our catalog becomes more valuable, our network becomes more valuable, and that will be part of attracting students and more faculty and creating more innovation in the space. So we're pretty excited by that. Daniel, did you go over the tech stuff already?
Yeah,
while I was off?
I went over the tech stuff while you were off.
Okay. While I was off dealing with my bad internet connection.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions that people have?
There was one question by Paul who asked, could we send him or our faculty a write-up on courses which might be good for an industry, on why our course might be good for an industry or industries?
A write-up. Paul, can you type in, what do you mean by a write-up?
At least if it's any sort of messaging, we are familiar at a pretty good level with the courses that are approved and that have been worked on and submitted to us. So any sort of assistance in the marketing of a course is greatly appreciated. We can sort of turn that stuff out onto our social media networks and help you perhaps promote your course. Again, we would love for faculty to be the entrepreneurial spearheads of their own outreach, but we do help when we can and where we can while we're also doing our sort of operational, technical.
You should also send that request to Michael Lee, okay? Because Michael's going to be handling the outreach for the business community and for industries as we develop that part of of our business of Oplerno. And so shoot that request to him. I had a wonderful conversation with a person in Spain about what businesses in Spain are looking for, and there's a lot of the materials that are being developed at Oplerno. The courses are going to be relevant in that network. So, but Michael, do you want to talk just a little bit about what do you want from faculty in terms of materials that you need to be able to approach businesses for skills and such?
Yeah, I think right now there's obviously a lot of demand for classes in entrepreneurship, for classes in accounting, finance, and some of the kind of just tangible skill sets that a lot of companies are looking for. There's probably more softer skill classes, such as classes in just change management. It's a big topic. Obviously, there's a shortage of those in the country or actually the world who understand the actual process or consulting practice of change management. So those are things that would be good to have.
Yeah, and of course, but I was on a discussion group today, and we were discussing one of the issues that's the people I was talking to are seeing is that a lot of the IT subjects that are being taught at universities or at the college level just don't even match the current technologies that we're using. People who are being taught things which are 20 years old at college and not even, and sadly not matching the newer technologies that are coming in that we're using daily in large technology companies. So this, for the technical side, there's certainly matches things that are currently not on offer within the universities, or at least not tailored to what industry needs, which can be used there. Sorry, Michael.
and think about how quickly our faculty can create and adapt the materials because they own them. Okay, and so we're going to be much more nimble than any CS department out there in terms of what we're able to offer, and I think the quality is going to be higher. Again, we just have to get that get the word out that this thing is available, and that will also be happening with a great presentation that Daniel's going to be doing in a couple of weeks.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
And Paul followed up. For example, his course on public speaking, which is it's actually called Power Speaking, would be good for financial reps. He could teach it at Merrill Lynch or wherever. That is fantastic. Just as we tend to think of higher ed as the traditional college student, we also are here to provide a medium for skill building, because ultimately, this vision was born from Rob seeing that skills are going to be what are sort of the quantifiable and also qualitative measurements of a person's ability to contribute in a workplace or wherever, school and so on. Paul, to that we say absolutely. That fits right in with sort of the vision of how this can access more than just a traditional credit-bearing college class situation. And there might be, we've heard a lot, from folks we've talked with and met with and sort of shared ideas with, that would be a really great outlet for these type of courses in the professional development, professional skill building field. So go for it. Send us that info. We'll pass it, or send it directly to Michael, which is just lee@oplerno.com, ly@oplerno.com, and you guys can start, developing that process and laying the groundwork too on how that sort of outreach and relationship building will go within Oplerno and going forward. And Alita just mentioned the course development class for Oplerno faculty, and yeah, so Rob and I, in the experience of faculty building the course, we have, of course, the range of exposure to platforms like Canvas and others, but everyone's got a different history, everyone's got a different experience, everyone's used different learning management systems. So we thought it might be great to sort of get a group of folks together who are interested in having a paced, the layout of topics and sort of tasks, have access to a faculty member in the building of their course, which would be Rob or me or both of us, depending on what day and time and all that. And sort of it sets that 6-week time frame, and you will end up with a course ready for offer. And so it benefits you, it benefits Oplerno, it benefits students. It's just a nice way to sort of set yourself up and move through the course building process with a little bit more accountability on both your part and our part to be available and also be contributing. So yeah, and that'll cover, we'll give you ways to load templates into Canvas, what sort of layouts we've seen that are great. We can talk about making videos or little, what are they called, explainer style videos, little animations that might help your students digest the information that you're teaching. And then Rob is the expert in pedagogy of our team, so he would then be able to kind of give you feedback on the course layout and how the content's developed, how the content progresses throughout the term that you're building. And yeah, so we're going to work on that. We're going to work hard to get that ready. Target is mid-January, but I'll just call it a target for now. I don't know if Rob, if you have anything else, or we can move on. There's a couple more questions coming in.
Yeah, let's deal with some other questions. I do want to kind of, let me just interject a second. We understand you faculty you've been with us, many of you, since the fall of last year, okay, of 2013, and when it was when Oplerno was just a dream, a twinkle in our eyes after that first article by Goldie Blumenstock. And now we have Canvas, we've got the courses, we've got the approval. It's amazing to me that we have produced, over 20 courses, okay, and that we've got so many courses on deck. When you think about what institutions are spending to do course development, okay, it's between 5 and 10,000 a course. If you look at stuff from, Coursera, $100,000 for some of these sections, okay? It's really amazing what you all have produced and the fact that you own it and it's yours. And so, the more you produce, the more people you get involved in creating Oplerno and creating our network and our certificates, the best off. But we wouldn't be anywhere close to where we're at if it weren't for you guys.
Rob, we have folks chiming in on Crowdcast about the course development, sort of expressing interest. We had a couple. So the best way to get on a list instead of sort of the stream-based conversation would be to email faculty at
email admissions at oplerno.com. Okay, and we'll get you set up with that, and we'll get you signed up for the course. Just say you want
thing via email, and you will know the time to sign up when it comes around, because we definitely want everyone who's interested up to the 25-person class limit to jump in, and so we'll surely be in touch via all of our outlets when that time comes as well. So plan on.
And look, if we've got a huge number of people, 20 or 25 people who want to do the course, we'll get it set, ASAP as soon as we get back from the New Year's celebrations. What other questions do we have, guys?
That looks like.
I don't see anything. Rob, are you monitoring the questions at oplerno.com? I assume everybody posted in here, but it could be that.
Let me just check, because I'm over at I've got guests visiting from out of town, and so I'm not at my usual spot.
We did have a follow-up comment in the conversation about developing, we could call it a pitch in a lot of ways, of how your class might help and be applicable to a more professional environment. Paul asked if his class is an example, and then some other faculty chimed in and said, oh yeah, no, should we all sort of do this? And again, absolutely, if your course could provide a benefit to a group of employees at one organization or across organization, it could be professional development. I know there's a lot of careers and fields that require their certified workers to undergo a lot of continuing education throughout their career to stay fresh and to be advancing the field. So if your courses would be applicable in those situations, please do tell us that and show us how that works, so that we can then bring your message to the connections that we already have, and perhaps forge new ones in getting those courses filled with some organizations.
I want to mention Michael and Michael Briere and his certificate for the humanities course. Michael, I should have mentioned it. In fact, you came up it's my bad, because you came up in a conversation when we were talking about, wow, faculty members can actually create enough content to have their own certificate. And so what you've done with the courses that you've got is impressive. So yes, I have seen it, and we want to make sure. One of the things that we need to make sure that we don't do is it's important that we look out and we develop courses that are interesting for businesses and all of that. Okay, and the business development and the economics, etc. And getting people jobs in this in professional development, etc. It is extremely important, in my opinion, that we re-energize the liberal arts and the humanities. Okay, because right now, at least in the States, the jobs in the humanities, writing, poetry, literature, art, all of those things are being cut back, and people are not, and they're so important for what are called in the business community the soft skills, but what I call sort of like the human skills. Okay, you have to have courses, and you have to have a background in literature, art, philosophy, if you're going to survive in this rapidly changing world that we live in. So one of the things that Oplerno wants to do is, and one of the things we're here to push, is the idea that of having certificates in art and the humanities and degrees in that, and making that part of the portfolio system, so that we don't lose and we re-energize the reason. You study the humanities and the liberal arts to find out what our lives are supposed to be. Okay, not necessarily how to get there, but what are we supposed to aspire to. And if we don't have these kinds of classes and make that also part of Oplerno, then we lose a really, really important part of what education is supposed to be all about. So my apologies, Michael. I should have mentioned the humanities certificate earlier, but please realize we are not forgetting your and several of your colleagues, your guys' important contribution to pushing Oplerno forward. It's not just the sciences. It's not just computer programming. It's not just business and economics. We want courses in philosophy. We want courses in the humanities and art. I graduated with a degree as an undergraduate in history and Buddhist philosophy. So I wouldn't be half the person I am now if I hadn't had those courses when I was younger. They really informed me. So again, end of sermon, and again, my apologies for not mentioning that sooner.
Okay, I think I'm looking around, and I think that we've come to the last of our questions. So unless anybody has some more questions, we could start rounding up.
Yeah, great. Why don't I'll wrap it up. If you guys just want to say a final word or two, then we'll end it with our traditional parting greeting.
Okay. No, I have nothing. It was fantastic to have you on. I'm so. I think it's always great to communicate with you guys, whether it's on the email and the community meetings are especially valuable for me. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys for joining us, and looking forward to being part of the team. Also looking forward to working with faculty on, like Dan had talked about, any courses that can be polished or for professional use with organizations and companies for continuing education. Love to help you with that, or look into that and reach out to the business community here. So, but looking forward to interacting with more of you and for Open Nursery too.
And yeah, I think I'd like to highlight what a year 2014 has been for Oplerno. Even in the metrics of attendees to our community meetings, probably have quadrupled. I know it's still a small number of core users, but when we think about it sort of statistically, every person and every marginal increase is a success and a win for all of us. And we started this year not approved to offer credit, with a smaller group of both faculty, with far less internal tech and organizational development, and creations and even products. And this is we live in an age of pretty instant gratification, and it can feel like it can be easy to get impatient at times, just due to what we're used to. But if you think about the fact that this community is supporting the building and construction, so to speak, of a large higher education institution that is being done for the right reasons by the people who will own and control it, I think we've come a long way. Since I called Rob on my way home from work a year and a half ago and said, "Hey, what's this thing you're up to?" And then since January of 2014, a lot of tangible wins, a lot of progress, and we're constantly moving forward. So stay with us. We are all doing this together, and I think 2015 should be another one of great successes and tons of progress.
I can't really say anything to add to what Dan Kirk has said, other than to thank two amazing co-founders, Dan Kirk and Daniel Crompton, who have worked their butts off for a slice of the dream, okay, but for no pay, and are doing this because they believe in it, like many of you. And thanks to the faculty, you guys, for sticking with us. 2015 is going to be another great year, and we're going to push things even further. So keep up the great work. We're always there for you. One side note, from the December 25th to January 1st, Oplerno is going to be basically offline. Everybody's going to be taking a week off. So if you have any questions, shoot them to me at questions@oplerno.com. I'm going to be the only one who's going to be watching the shop, because I want everybody to take a little bit of a break, and I will too. But thank you very much for attending the community meeting. Please check for our January update. Look at our job postings on AngelList, and we'll see you online.